Welcome to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a global vitiligo awareness and education podcast. You will hear the true and authentic stories from people living with vitiligo. You'll also hear from their loved ones, medical professionals, licensed mental health therapists, relationship counselors, global vitiligo support foundations and organizations, community leaders, and so much more. Sit back and enjoy Living Life and Love. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. On today, I welcome back my relationship panel, and we're going to talk about a few things that are very important for us as people, but I won't give that away right now. So let me start welcoming my panel. Welcome, Dawn and Clarence. You might have to say something so that mic can,
Hello.
there you go, so the camera can jump to you. Yeah, you can turn them back on now.
Hello.
All right, let me go. Well, welcome to the podcast and welcome Darius.
Hey, what's going on, good people? How you doing?
Yeah, welcome to the podcast, Darius and Jamie.
Hey, how are you? Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. And Stephanie.
Hello. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Yes, happy Sunday. So thank you all for tuning in. So our discussion today will be about self-love and self-care. They are different, but yet they work hand in hand. And this was a discussion that was brought up actually by Darius on one of our last relationship podcasts. He kind of threw it out there and I said, let's roll with it. So we're going to start unpacking and talking about a few things and sharing from our perspectives, and maybe even share some things that people can do to help them manage the self-care aspect, and maybe even learn how to share or teach themselves how to love themselves, because I think that is a struggle we have at times. But I'm going to start it off. Let's talk about self-love first. I think once we identify that, then we can talk about the self-caring. And I looked at a couple of different definitions, and I think they're all pretty much the same. And it's the appreciating oneself, or acknowledging who you are as a person. And that's a smaller way of saying it, you know, and looking at taking care of yourself and your own well-being and all that good stuff. I could add more, but I don't want to take away from everything and everybody. So anybody else want to jump in and add to it?
So are you asking us to add definition to what self-care and self-love
just
is?
add some definition. Let's starting off with self-love. Like from your perspective, what does that look like? What is self-love?
I think self-love is being able to appreciate yourself despite what other people may say about you, or what regardless of how you feel about how the outside world may picture you or perceive you as a person, regardless of the challenges that you have in your life, you're able to still love yourself and still give yourself some grace, regardless of the things that you may struggle with or have failed at, still being able to say, you know what, I still love myself and I know I can do better.
Okay, thank you, Darius. That was great. Anybody want to add to it?
Yeah, I think what Darius said, and also what you said, but and also adding the valuing yourself, not only acknowledging yourself, but also valuing who you are, which would include not caring so much what other people say, having that inner dialogue to validate your own self-worth.
Well, I'll follow up, because that's exactly similar to what I was going to say. It's definitely understanding that you are worthy. And so like Darius said and Stephanie said, so it's allowing yourself grace, giving yourself grace, and understanding again that you are worthy because you are here. You're worthy enough because you are just, you're here. So
Absolutely.
you didn't have to do anything more than just being here.
And Dawn and Clarence, you want to add anything, and then we'll all kind of unpack a few things.
They pretty much said exactly what I was thinking. Knowing that you matter.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you what I think is important. What Stephanie said: valuing who you are as a person. Other people are gonna put their values on you regardless. Whether they highly value you or don't at all. But you have to see yourself, as somebody mentioned, as being worthy. And I have value in this world. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here on purpose. And going back to that, showing yourself grace when you have made some mistakes, because we all make mistakes. We've all done things that others can look at and go, oh my gosh, how dare you do that? Like, we're people, we're going to make mistakes. But still knowing in those mistakes, I'm still a person, I'm still a human, I still have value to add to, this world or somebody else's life, and even my life, like, I'm important, and I love who I am. And I think that's a big struggle I see sometimes, just in my journeys. People don't love who they are as people. Sometimes they want to be somebody else, in particular. And I don't want to take up the whole conversation, but in particular, when people look at celebrities, sometimes we want to be like them or have the lifestyle they have, not realizing what they had to do to get there. And instead of just loving who you are in this space you're in this moment. I want to be like LeBron. I want to be like, Michael Jackson when he was alive. I want to be able to jump on stage instead of just saying, I'm going to be Mark. And this is who Mark is. And this is what Mark brings to the table of life to other people, Anybody want to jump in, add a little bit more to it? Somebody?
I think that summed it up.
Okay, good. But yeah,
Well,
go ahead. Stephanie has something.
I mean,
to say.
I was just gonna say that comparing yourself to other people can motivate you in some ways. Like, I want to be like them, but comparison also can rob you of joy because you are comparing yourself to other people and you're not measuring up to what they are.
Right. And you know what? And I'm gonna be honest, I did that for a little while. I have so many friends that are educators, and I wasn't in education. And I just kept saying, well, I can't be a teacher like them. They're good teachers, and I can never be a teacher like this person or that person. But I wasn't in education at that time. And I was doubting my own capabilities and not realizing that I have the same value. I have the same opportunities as they do. And so that was a negative aspect on my end to compare myself to somebody else. But then on the positive end, I've had one of my brothers reach out to me to remind me, hey, you're a good educator, like, you're doing a great job, and always carry that pride with yourself, knowing that you are making a difference. And although, we do carry that self-love, I feel like there are times we got to be reminded, and it doesn't always come from us. It may come from somebody else, or where you least expect it.
Right. And if you don't mind if I add to it, and I hope I'm not changing the subject or moving it in a different direction, but I think sometimes the reason we do the comparison or become subjected to the comparison is because, again, we don't see the value in ourselves. We don't recognize the skills that sometimes we just don't feel like that we have anything to give that people want.
Right.
And or desire. And so then we compare ourselves to others because we're going like, well, look at my friend here that every time I turn around, they get an award for something. And this friend, so you look at those things because you can't see anything in yourself that you feel like, oh, this is a great thing and people want it or recognize it. So So sometimes you will compare yourself, and I don't know if one comes before the other. Like if you're looking at others and then saying that you have nothing, or you look at yourself and say you don't have nothing, so it makes you look at others and go, wow, look at all that they got. But there's some kind of like vicious, like little circle connection.
Yeah.
With, so.
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of both. And I can only say that because I've done that before. I would compare maybe my writing to somebody else's, not realizing that every person has a different writing style. Every person writes different genre. But also some of that comes from listening to other people and not seeing my own worth, but listening to the work they gave me. They gave me a certain value, a certain number. And because I had somebody tell me one day, it was somebody that was close to me, that they would never read my writing because they only read writing or books from people that are already established or something to that nature. And for me, in that moment, it hit me, and I kind of felt like, wow, I can't compete with, the Ta-Nehisi Coates and all these other people. But then I also have to step back and say, well, I'm not them. That's not my journey. They had a different journey. So I can't listen to what this person said, because if I do, then I'm never going to write again. I'm never going to pick up the pen. I'm never going to write another piece of poetry because of what they said. And I can't live my life like that. But I understand there's some people that will, once they get slashed by somebody that's close to them, they get completely deflated. And it's hard for them to pick themselves back up to say, hey, I love me. This is who I am, and I'm not going to give you that power to tell me I can't be something that I want to be.
Right.
Stephanie, I see your face. I know you have something to say. I could just feel it.
It makes me think about the giving yourself grace part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a couple things came up. Values, like what's important to you, how you value creativity, and you're looking at somebody's writing and yours, comparing it. If I'm not creative, then I am less than the other person.
Right.
And there goes your self-esteem. Like it gets lower and lower the more you can't reach certain characteristics. But then the self-compassion and the grace comes in because you show it to other people. Right. Self-love is showing it to yourself as well. Like you wouldn't tell a kid, oh, suck it up, stop being a wimp or stop whining and crying. So why would you be so hard on yourself? So that is what was coming up for me, the self-compassion part of self-love.
Okay.
Jamie, you want to add anything before I jump in?
No, because I would be just saying the same thing everybody else said. So we can move on.
Okay.
I used to
go ahead.
Sometimes, but I got to thinking about, okay, how do they get where they're at? Or how do they establish they had to go through the small steps, defeats, downfalls. They had to go through their own journey to get to where they're at. I don't want to go through their because I have my own journey. So if I begin to look at their journey, even behind the scenes of their situations, and I can't do it because my feet don't fit their shoes, and then vice versa. Their feet don't fit my shoes. So I have my own journey to look at. And so when I begin to say, let me see how they are. No, let me see how Don is. Let me see how Don feels. Right. How can I get from A to B to B to C to see where I'm going? And then when you were talking about Mark, they said that they're not going to read your writing. They're putting themselves in their own little box because what you can offer them, can't nobody else offer them.
Right. So
they're putting themselves in their own little cubicle of not, advancing out to where you're at.
Right. And Stephanie, you thank you for sharing that, Dawn. Stephanie, you mentioned self-compassion, and we'll get to the self-care soon. But self-compassion is good because there are times we are more compassionate to other people or towards other people in their situations, and we'll help somebody else, and then we'll shut our doors and we're suffering in silence. We are struggling with whether it's something at work or personal relationships or whatever, but we can offer help to everybody else, but we become very hard on ourselves, and there are times we got to soften that blow and say, no, I'm a great person. I have value. I can do this, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and stop beating ourselves up. Because I think at times we are our own worst enemy.
Yep. How do we
So-
conquer that?
How do we conquer that? All right, let's talk about that. How do we conquer, or how do we show self-love to ourselves?
Mhm.
There's something I always say at the very end, and I think it is important. And I say it not just because it's my catchphrase at the end, but I think it's important that we need to constantly tell ourselves, I love you.
Mm.
Flaws and all, gray hairs, missing piece of the hair, going bald, whatever we're doing. In that moment, it might be several times you have to stop and say, I love you to ourselves. We'll say it to everybody else. We, even as teachers, we tell our kids positive reinforcements and affirmations, but we need to try doing that to ourselves too. You are great. You're wonderful. This is going to be a great day. You're a powerful person, or, you're great at this, whatever your job is. We have to remind ourselves that there's strength within ourselves. And when we speak words, we're not just speaking to other people. We got to speak it to ourselves, because we hear it come out of our, as my pastor used to say, we hear it come through our ear gates first before anybody else will.
For me, self-compassion is so important, because I'm definitely someone who, for whatever reason, these last few decades, I, gave everybody else grace, but I never gave myself grace.
Right.
And even for my children, I was hard on them growing up too. And I realized that, and I'm like, well, how come I have all of this compassion for everybody else? But when I started giving myself grace, matter of fact, in 2023, I purchased the car, and I named her Grace, because I wanted as a reminder to show myself grace. And let me tell you, it's a beautiful feeling. Like I am just the sweetest person to myself. And anytime something happens or I mess up, I was like, girl, it'll be better. Or like, sometimes I'd be like, okay, you being too easy on yourself. But it's just a beautiful feeling to have that grace for yourself as much as you have for so many other people. So it's just self-compassion is so important, and it's such a place of peace, because not being so hard on yourself.
So if I may add to this, and maybe I can be that avatar for those individuals that are struggling with self-love, because I'm not going to sit and say that I don't love myself, because I do love myself. But the concept of looking in the mirror and saying to myself in the mirror, I love you, I'm just going to be honest, like, it comes off corny to me. And I'm not saying that it's a corny thing to do. I'm just expressing.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. And so, because I have friends, so my story, and Stephanie is aware of this, and I think I've even mentioned it to you, Mark, and that's kind of like why we're having this conversation now. But last year was a major struggle for me. I mean, I got hit on every end from all kinds of things, and I was depressed. And I still go through bouts of depression. And so in order to deal with it, I'll go outside and walk. Like, I need sunshine. That sunshine, being out in the air, listening to music, lifts me up out of that darkness. Because sometimes it comes like I just feel like darkness is around me. Like, it just feels, oh my gosh, what's going on? But with that said, I have, the organization that I've mentioned on here before, Man Cave SA, and one of our pillars is being accountable to one another and supporting, lifting one another up. And so when I was going through it, I did reach out to them. I did talk to them, and they came and, they did their thing and talked to me and stuff. And so one of the young dudes, he was like, hey, listen, this, what I do is, I stand in front of the mirror. I tell myself, I love you and you're great and all this stuff. And, and actually the reason he said this, because I saw him write about it on a post in Facebook. And I was like, really connect. So I wanted to reach out, because I'm like, does that really work for you? Like, it's like, can I, and he talked to me, and it's like, okay. is this going to work for me? Like, and so I do struggle with that, even with the idea of journaling. Like, I'm like, does that really work? I'm still not understanding the concept of like getting up in the morning or in the evening and just writing whatever comes to my mind. Like, that's what everybody tells you, just write. And I'm like, but how does that supposed to make me feel better? So I struggle with these concepts. I'm just being honest. I struggle with them. I don't see how it will work. So
it's really, you know what? It's really about one size does not fit all. So,
Right.
I could be somebody that could look in the mirror and high five myself, and somebody else would be like you said, that's corny. What is that really doing? Like, you're just psyching yourself. Like, how does that work? And so that wouldn't be their method. Their method might not be writing, but they want to get their thoughts out. So their method might be, recording, their thoughts. And for you, it may not be either or. It may be just at the end of the night, be like, you know what, I did the best internally. I did the best I could. You did good today. Maybe that's just your thing, but it's just so many different different activities or things that you can do, and it's really about finding what will work for you. Like, what amps you up, what hypes you up, what makes you feel better. And it won't be the same thing as what it does for Mark.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it might not. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie. You want to go ahead?
Or you can go.
You sure?
There's
Well,
no language.
kind of sort of want to say the thing about self-love is one of our segments or shows, we talked about what is love, and love, according to Bell Hooks, love is an action. So if you can't tell yourself you love yourself, you can show yourself that you love yourself by self-care, setting boundaries, exercising, going out and touching the sun. All of those actions are ways of showing yourself self-love, and the words may not work for you. Like,
Right. And I was gonna say, and it could be different each and every moment of the day. Because I can start off my day looking in the mirror, but like, yeah, okay, cool, because I don't always look in the mirror, but like, I love you, that is kind of, but I might be like, oh, I'm looking all right today, but then get in the car and next thing you know, get to work and it's like, I gotta teach. Oh man, these kids are all ready. Or it could be a colleague say something that they don't realize is gonna set me off, and I can share this. I kind of felt some type of way when the protests happened, and I had a colleague ask me why weren't there many Black people out there, and I was like, first of all, good morning. I really don't feel like answering that or talking to you. You should know why, but anyway, now I'm in a different headspace because I didn't walk in the building like that.
Right.
But now I'm thinking about something else, and then I'm teaching civil rights to my students. And as I'm teaching, sometimes you get those aha moments. Now I'm feeling some type of way like, So I think for me, if I journal every thought that came to my mind, good Lord, there's not enough paper, and it's going to be jibber jabber, and it's going to be some not so pleasant words that I can't really say here. It's going to be a little bit of everything. So I do have to find what works for me in that moment, and it may switch. Some days, y'all might think I'm crazy. I might be walking in the hall like, if y'all remember the old Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder movie, he's walking like, I'm bad. They're walking out the jail cell. There are times I may be walking down the hall like, the kids are like, what's wrong with you? Hey, this is my moment. I can't tell you why I'm doing this, but this is what I need for that moment, just to remind myself I got this. Because when I sit down, sometimes I feel like I ain't got it, and it can, like I said, it could switch in the moment. And I feel when you say, Darius, with the struggles, the depression, I am not gonna front, it hits me too. There are times I'm feeling depressed and I'm like, I gotta go walking, I gotta go do something, I can't sit in the house. Even if I just drive down the street and come back, this is what I need in that moment. And like Jamie said, you got to find what works best for you, and you might have to try a few things, to see what brings you peace.
Right. Yes.
So let's switch gears a little bit. We're still talking about loving ourselves, but let's talk about self-care, because I think this is where we're really going to get the meat of the conversation. Because this is where it starts, the self-care, which could be a combination of physically taking care of yourself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I think that's where we're going to find what works for us in terms of loving ourselves. And really, that's what self-care is being healthy, taking care of yourself in a healthy way. So let's talk first about the most important one. I was going to say it was the physical, but I think the mental health is what a lot of us struggle with. And I say a lot of us because I put myself in that category too, because there are days I feel overwhelmed. There are days I feel I am burnt out, and I'm better at saying it to people, whether they care or not. I said it, I got it out. What you do with that information is on you. What I'm gonna do with it now, I said it, now I can go walking with my music, or just riding down the highway, got my music blasting, whatever I need for that moment, that's gonna help me out. So what are some things that you guys do to help you manage on the mental aspect? Because I think that's what hurts a lot of us the most. Physically, we know, but mentally, what are some of the things that you do to help you?
I'll go. So for me, self-care definitely started mental. Like it started internally first. Before, I know people talk about, get your massage, go get your feet done. But for me, the self-care started when I started giving myself grace. So that was that first part. I started setting boundaries with family members, and that was huge. Just especially like my daughter, and I kind of would say the phrase all the time. Anytime somebody asks me something, I don't have the capacity, and because I didn't. And not feeling guilty when I said it, because that was the other thing. I definitely had guilt going on for so long, but telling people I don't have the capacity at this time, even if I had nothing to do, my nothing to do still, it didn't, it didn't allow me to do stuff for you. I wanted to do nothing. So so it was just that, setting those boundaries and giving myself grace were like the two biggest things that I really began to show myself self-care.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of our struggle sometimes can come from giving to others. We give until we don't have anything left to give, but there's nothing being poured back into us. It's just kind of like, okay, I gave all I have nothing else, now what? And then until somebody else could pour back into you. And I know a lot of times we say we got to pour back into ourselves. Yes, but sometimes we don't even have the energy for that. Like you said, I don't want to do anything. I just want to just be in my peace.
Right.
There are times where people say, be around family, be around friends. No, sometimes family and friends can drain you for various reasons. And having the energy brought back into you could be a song. It could be just going outside, listening to the birds. It could be taking a walk. Sometimes it is talking to someone, but then you have to do the work afterwards. I feel once you have that conversation, then you have to do the work afterwards. And not to say it's a one and done thing. It may take a couple of shots to try to figure it out, figure out what you're going to do next. What's the next step?
Mhm.
And I know sometimes we think men are hard-headed. We don't listen. We do. We listen. Hey, we listen, but we just gotta, sometimes our steps are baby steps until we go, I got it. I know what you're saying now.
Yeah, sound good.
I would,
I'm like-
I would also add for me. I'm sorry, Dawn, did you want to go?
I'm like Jamie. I had to realize, and it had to hit me in my face a couple times. You got to let that negative energy out of your life. And I had to learn that the hard way, because that negative energy is pouring into my energy. I don't have the energy for that. I don't have, like I don't have the strength to deal with that. So when I began to realize, I said, oh, okay, I gotta let these certain people. And I heard a couple weeks ago, a pastor out of Chicago, you can't let everybody sit at your table because everybody that's sitting at your table can't eat what you eat. They can't digest what you're digesting. So when I realized that, I said, okay, all that negative energy can't be in my space. And when I began to say, nope, you can't do it, nope, you can't have it. And I was like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Mentally, it began to open open the sky for me to say, okay, I feel a lot better. But just hearing devotionals or good music that pours back into my spirit mentally, that self-love is amazing.
Yeah. Because sometimes there are certain people you could be around that they have good intentions, but they are emotional vampires. They just suck all the energy out of you. Sometimes they don't even have to say anything. They could just be near you and you just feel all your energy just going away until you find a way to move away from that person or relieve yourself from that group or whatever. And to find your peace.
Right.
I think a lot of it is finding, as we mentioned, what's going to bring you peace, what's going to bring you happiness, what's going to help you relax, because that stress is no joke.
No.
Let's talk a little bit about the physical. What are some physical things we can do to manage our self-care and all that good stuff? We talked about walking. That was one of them.
I think it's really important, and a lot of people overlook it, is getting enough sleep. Because your body has to recharge, your brain has to reset itself. Stress levels plus lack of sleep is not a good thing. Not a good thing for your heart. So a lot of times as we get older, we forget about the importance of sleep. I mean, I know when we get real old, we fall asleep at but we don't do enough. We don't prioritize sleep. And so I think that's an important part of self-care, is getting enough sleep.
Right. And knowing when to turn off the devices, because that is a hard time for us. Because let's be real, we sitting there, you're about to go to sleep. Ding! If you got your volume up, you look to see who dinged you. Okay, you're laying there, you just happen to reach over and your hand touch your phone. You got to pick it up to see what's going on nothing. Everybody that should be asleep is all on Facebook and Instagram and TikToking each other. It's like, just go to sleep. And that's something I had to teach myself too. Like, I'll turn everything down. I don't want the backlight is down. Everything's dark on my phone. Everything is off, no ringers, nothing. And I put it upside down so I'm not tempted just to look at it until my alarm goes off. Then I'm like, okay. But sleep is important. I know some of us do struggle with sleeping through the night. And I'll say even myself, there are times that I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed early, and that might be 10 o'clock. I wake up at 12. Like, come on, man, it's only 12. Now I roll over, go back to sleep, sleeping well. I'm like, yes. Wake up 2 o'clock. Oh, come on. Then I go back to sleep. I'm like, okay, now I'm in deep sleep. 4:30. Then it's like, I might as well just stay up and go to work. I mean, but it's like that. It's not like that every night, but there's some nights where I'm trying to sleep. And then there's some nights where everything is on my mind. Man, what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to teach the kids? What's happening here? Oh, we got to do this. Oh, that's right. I got this appointment. Oh, we got this going on. And I'm like, yo, just shut it down. Shut it down. And I do my best to get that rest. Some days I'm successful, some days I'm not. There are days I say I'm gonna do some work when I get home, and my body goes, go to sleep, and I'll fall asleep. And the work doesn't get done. And I realized that, well, if I didn't do it last night, I could do it when I get to work. So I'm trying to, that's what giving myself grace and setting those boundaries. There's certain things at work I can do at work. I don't have to bring home. If I got time to do it, just get in the job, shut the door, don't talk to anybody, and do your work. I'm good. So figuring these
Mhm.
things out is important. What are some other, I know working out, exercising, like whether it's weight training or cardio or different things like that to your ability. Because I know not everybody wants to go to the gym.
Mhm.
That's more stress for some of us.
Well,
You know?
it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It's just being active.
Yep.
Do something, move around, do something. Going fishing. You can go fishing. You can go for a ride in the car. You don't have to like pump weights and stuff like that, but just be active. Shoot, even treat yourself. I know we talked about massages and stuff, but treat yourself to a movie and go with nobody but you. So you don't have to worry about sharing anything. You don't have to worry about somebody talking in your ear.
Yep.
Go by yourself, be selfish, buy that big tub of popcorn and eat it by yourself.
And enjoy it. Go see a comedy and laugh by yourself. Don't worry about nobody
Right.
else.
That
You are your best date.
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
But I do that. I go to the movies. Like if you got a Regal theaters on Monday, they do like Monday mystery movie. And you don't know what you're gonna see, but I would just go
No.
see it. And whether it's a dud or not, I went to the movies, I enjoyed it. There are times I've gone to the movies and nobody else is in the theater, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is great. I ain't gonna worry about nobody talking, nobody's kids, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the movie like I've never seen it before. I might have seen this movie 3 times already. Good.
Most of the time I go to the movies is by myself. And it's because I hate when people talk.
Yeah.
It bothers me. And what was funny is I actually took my grandson to the movie and I said something to him. He was like, shh. I was like, okay, I understand. But for me, the physical self-care practices that I put in were huge game changers for me. So one, I joined the 40 plus Double Dutch Club, and it's just so much fun. I just have so much fun. And so we double dutch, we hula hoop, we line dance, and all these great activities that we did when we were a kid for hours. Now I can't do it for hours. I don't know how I used to do it for hours when I was a kid, but it's just so much fun. And I'm moving and being active. And then another one for me is, I never loved cooking. And so when my last daughter went away to college, I kind of like just stopped and I became a person that went out to ate out every day, which was, horrible for my pockets, horrible for my health. And then earlier this year, I just started, cooking. I cook every day. And in 3 months, I had lost 28 pounds. And so I was just, it was just that is self-love.
Yes.
I need to get back because I kind of fell off, but and that was definitely self-love for me. Starting to cook, not spending money to eat out, unhealthy foods, and just really caring about what was going into my system.
Right. Absolutely. Let's talk about the emotional part, because I think sometimes we forget to take care of our emotions. And I'm gonna tell you right now, being the educator, you go through every emotion possible within a day. You're happy, you're sad, you're frustrated, you're mad, you're confused, you name it. And this is probably all within 1 hour of teaching. What I've learned to do is, even if I'm getting upset with a child, I try to throw a joke in there. Like I try to remind myself this is still a child and they're going to say and do strange things. That child may be walking 1 minute and fall on the floor for no reason. Don't get mad. It's just a child. That child may be sitting in the seat and next, their feet are up in the air and the head on the floor for whatever reason, still a child, but I have to remind myself that and to find some joy in those moments. And I'm getting better at it, or when kids are arguing and fussing. And I'm gonna tell you what brings me peace when they're doing it. There's the Lonely Man theme from the Incredible Hulk TV show from back in the days, at the very end where he was always walking away sad. Bling, 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 bling. I will put that on as the kids are arguing. And I turn it up loud. And I said, go ahead and argue now. And they can't do it. And the other kids are just enjoying it. And I'm just sitting there like, go ahead. No, go ahead and argue. Go Go ahead, continue. And most times, 95% of the time, it'll shut them down. And for me, in that moment, it's not for them. It's for me. That
Right.
song brings me peace.
So are they responding to the music like you just putting on the audio, or you actually showing the?
No, I put on the audio.
Hmm.
I will, as soon as they start arguing, I say, hold on, give me a second. And I'll put it on and I'll play it and I let it go. And I'm sitting there in my peace. And they realize, okay, we're gonna stop arguing because this is not gonna work. Yeah. and I had to explain to a child, I said, this is not for you.
Right.
I need this in this moment. Because regardless of whether I turn it off or on, you're still going to argue because that's what kids do. They're going to find a reason to argue. I'm finding my peace through this song. And one day I think I went through maybe 6 different songs, Happy and, what was the other one? Don't Worry, Be Happy, Let It Go. I was playing all types of stuff. And the kid was like, I don't like those songs. You don't have to like them. It's for me.
Right.
I'm finding my peace in this classroom right now because if I don't, you're going to be sent out of this class or write you up or something because, we got to find how to control our emotions, whether it's dealing with kids, whether it's dealing with adults, especially adults, strangers, but I think mainly with those close to us. Because the people that are closer to us, they're the ones that are really going to push our buttons because they know how. Any thoughts?
My thought is, and I would hope Stephanie would give more feedback on this part because, she has the background. I'm just trying to reiterate some stuff that I've learned through her. But I think, we're talking about dealing with emotions, then we have to identify those emotions. So you can't manage them if you can't identify them, correct? Right? Like if you have an emotion and you don't know what it is, then how are you going to know how to respond or manage it? So I think, part of it is being able to identify that you have emotions. I think it actually starts with admitting to yourself that you have emotions, that you can be emotional, right? And then once you realize and say, well, that doesn't make me less of a human, especially men, right? And then move away from that ego and go, okay, I am feeling a certain type of way, but why? And what is this emotion? And then once you can identify it and say why, like understand the trigger, then you can probably start managing it. Because if you don't know what the trigger is, it might be a little bit hard to make. Because if you don't know what the trigger is, when the trigger happens, you're going to react. That emotion is just going to come out, right? And so, but if you got to identify the trigger, like what it is, what it's about, why you're doing it, then when it happens, you can go, okay, and then do whatever it is that you need to do to be able to manage it. But so, yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Dempsey. Right. you are right on because I have a weekly workshop that I do, a leadership development program for teenagers, and that's actually what is coming up. Our next session is on self-regulation, self-management, and so you're absolutely right. Understanding, identifying emotions, identifying what triggers it, all of those things are so important. So absolutely.
Yeah, well, I went to the school of Stephanie.
Good, it wasn't Trump school.
Right? I think the greatest thing we can do with emotions is to acknowledge them. Because without judgment, that's a big piece, is without judgment. I am angry because you called me this, or I'm sad because my fish died. When you identify the emotion and then accept the emotion, it's not the emotion, it's the behavior that follows the emotion that gets us in trouble. Like I'm angry, so I'm gonna punch you in the face, as opposed to I'm angry and I'm gonna go for a walk. So the emotion is not what we want to like, oh no, it's an emotion, get it away from me. It's more like, I have this emotion, I'm a human being, and this is an appropriate emotion. If it's not appropriate, like Darius said, follow your thoughts as to why you feel that way. And if you want to change the emotion, change your thought. That's another whole segment. But yeah, identify your emotion, feel your emotions, and in order to do all of that, in order to regulate your emotions, you have to identify the emotion.
Yep. I'm glad you said that because I've recognized I've done that many times with the students I'm teaching. Like if somebody's interrupting my teaching, I might be upset in that moment, and I will let them know. Um, right now I'm frustrated with you, or I can't really say I've been angry, maybe a little disappointed, maybe a little mad. Yeah, because I feel like anger and mad are a little bit different. I can get mad at you, but I'll get over it. If I'm angry towards you, it's gonna last for a while. I do feel like they're a little bit different. But I'll let my kids know. But then I said, give me a moment, and then I'll come back and let's sit down and talk, and I'll explain. And maybe not what they want to hear in the moment, but I explain why I feel this way. And here it is. We've been doing this all school year, or for the past 2 weeks, talking about whatever subject, and you talking about cornbread. Like we talking about civil rights, and you talking about cornbread. So that's what we do. So explain to me why. So that's an inside joke with all of us here. But then I try to find something lighthearted in it where it can make me smile, and I always have to check myself each and every day and remind myself they're kids. They're 8 and 9-year-olds, maybe 10. This is how they think. They don't think like me. They're not adults, although we treat them like that. And they're going to do stuff to get under your skin. That one child is going to make dog noises in the middle of class. What do you do with that? Do I get mad, or I go
Back.
do I have a dog in the classroom? How do I identify that? I'm getting better with the using a little humor to help me get through it. Because I've seen colleagues explode because a child was pretending to be a horse in class, or whatever kids do. Kids do stuff, or sound effects with pencils and but in dealing with other adults, like in our personal lives, I'm still learning too. There's some things I'm still managing in terms of how do I feel about this situation, or how do I feel about that situation. And there are times in that moment I go, I'm not feeling anything. And I don't know if that's good or bad. If I don't feel anything, I'm not mad, I'm not frustrated, I'm not sad, I'm not nothing. I just like, all right, let me move on. And I think that's something else that maybe I need to identify. Why am I not feeling anything in this moment? Or is it that because it was something that was bringing me some type of internal harm or mental harm or whatever, I shut it out, and I feel like I've done it in certain situations where I completely just it's done, and there's sometimes I'm like, why? Because I'm one of those people. I'm trying to understand why other people are doing the stuff they're doing. I'm like, well, and I've talked to, certain people that they have told me, what about me? Focus on me. How does it make me feel? And how do I, how am I going to deal with it? Don't worry about the other person because I can't control them. I can only control my actions and how I react to it. And Jamie,
I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, Jamie, those boundaries important.
Yeah,
I'm learning how to set those boundaries.
A great book right now from Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory, and it's like the best book for that. Because for me, I'm somebody that have always been like really rigid, really want to just be like and controlled. And the let them theory is actually, about you have no control over anyone else.
Right,
You only have control over yourself. And she gave this great story of how she was on an airplane and the guy behind her was coughing the whole ride, not covering his mouth. She talked about how she turned around and was like, "Sir, can you please, cover your mouth?" And he wouldn't. So he kept doing it. And then she just said, "You know what? I had to let him. Like, he's not responsible for keeping me from not getting sick." So if I have a speech coming up, let me put on my mask or let me do this. And so when you kind of give up that control, or when you realize that you it's nothing you can do except regulate yourself, it's just a great place to be in. It's a healthier, more peaceful place to be.
And let me share this. As educators, sometimes we give some of the best advice to students, but we don't take it for ourselves. So many times I've heard us, not just myself, but other people as well, say to the kids, you can't control what somebody else is doing, but you can only control what you do. So when they say, well, they made me, nobody made you do anything. You made that decision. But at the same time, as adults, we forget to take that same advice for ourselves. Nobody made us do anything. We control our actions and how we respond to what other people are doing, whether we give them a response or not. You know, it's kind of our choice. We do that. Whether we give them a space in our lives or not, that's our choice, you know. And we also have to recognize when something's not healthy and try to move on from it. And I say try because sometimes it is easier for some people, and some people it's not so easy. It depends on your situation.
Mhm.
Anybody want to add anything to it before we go to the next part?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about the spiritual well-being. Whatever that may look like, because I know some people may say, well, I don't go to church, or I don't worship, I don't this, I don't that, you know. And I know it can be a touchy subject for some people when you think about your spiritual well-being, but I also feel like we've got to be mindful of what we're feeding ourselves spiritually. It's easy to put garbage in, but it's harder to take that garbage out, you know, because I'm gonna say it like this, and y'all may not like it. You get constipated full of garbage, and you're trying to get it out, and it's just stuck.
Full of full of it.
There we go. But I do feel like spiritually, like if you're a praying person, if you are into the church, you know, and we're not talking about every church. We're talking about, you know, if you're the Christian faith, going to the church. No, there are some people that are Muslim, some people that have other religions, you know. If that's where you go to find your peace, do that. You know, and I'm only saying this because I don't want people to think it's only because, you know, we get to the whole, well, no, this is the only religion, or this is the religion here, this is that. You know, if you're a praying person and that brings you, you know, self-care in your life, it helps you out, do so. If it involves singing, if it involves worshiping with others or by yourself, do that. Find what it is that's going to bring you that peace and happiness in that moment. Because as soon as you step foot in this world, or if you turn on the TV, it's going to be some mess,
Mhm.
especially in 2025. It's going to be some mess.
Yeah.
Can't get away from it. Any thoughts on that, Dawn, Clarence? Yeah, I kind of threw it out to y'all.
I know with me, spiritual. The crazy part is I just really started thinking about probably physical and actually self-care and all that stuff for the last year or two. You know, I've been one kind of like Darius. I've dealt with depression and things like that, and it's crazy to how you can be spiritual and have your spiritual, you know, self intact, but then you're not taking care of your physical and all your emotional part. You know, people think just because you may be spiritual that you got it all together,
Right.
but you may have the spiritual part right, but then all the other stuff is lacking. And I can say that from experience because, you know, I've never one who never, you know, thought about, okay, well, taking care of myself, because to me, kind of like Darius, you know, I didn't believe in it, you know, looking talking about, well, you matter and all that stuff until you get to the point where you have to be able to tell yourself and change the mindset that, you know what, you do matter.
Yeah.
And I think once you get to that part, then you can truly have spiritual oneness with God. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad you said it because I'm just going to speak from a male perspective. I think a lot of men are struggling with, you know, many other areas. I would say depression is a big one. It would be nice if we said we had it all together. You know, in some aspects, we pretend like we do. Men will walk, we got our chest poked out and we go to work and do what we got to do. But yet we're lacking in maybe the mental health area, or maybe it's the physical health. No matter if we're talking about working out, but maybe we're not eating right, or there's something else that we're dealing with and struggling with that causes us not to be able to take care of ourselves to the fullest, but we don't often talk about it. We don't often show it. We don't want anybody to know. And that's something I'm getting better at. And I can say that because, in times I can pretend I'm good, but, if I'm allergic to everything, if I can't breathe, then what? I'm no good. And I'm like, if I'm around people, I'll let them know, hey, I got an inhaler in my pocket. That's going to help me out if I have an asthma attack. I'm allergic to grass, trees, everything that grows in nature, but I love being outside. So this is what I need to do to take care of myself first. Or just say, I can't be outside today. I'm going to limit my activities. And then also, we talking about on the spiritual aspect. There have been times, sitting in church, but yet I'm feeling down because of this situation or that situation, but trying to put on the good look, the face to say, I'm good, I'm okay. And I've mentioned, I think I may have mentioned to Stephanie, like feeling, all right. So, since last year when my dad died, a lot of people ask me, how's your mom doing? How's your mom doing? She's well. We're taking care of our mom. We're making sure she's okay. But very rarely do they say, how are you doing? And I feel like if you're going to ask me that, be ready for the real answer in that moment, because you may catch me when I'm really having a rough day, or a rough time, or feeling depressed, or feeling overwhelmed. And that's something I ain't gonna front. I've been feeling that for the past couple of weeks. As a teacher, we're all overwhelmed. There's so much happening. A lot's been thrown on our plate, and things are shifting because of what's happening with the education department. So we're feeling that shift. And we have to, I feel like we've got to figure out a way to meet all of those needs, physically take care of ourselves, emotionally take care of ourselves, mentally take care of ourselves, and spiritually. And I think once all those four things come together, if you can at the same time, and I say if, because sometimes you may have three and missing one, or they may fluctuate, or figure out how to manage them. What is it going to take for you to have yourself in a good place where you feel like you're truly taking care of yourself?
That's so true. For me, my spiritual kind of self-care was starting to just partner with God. I can't do it on my own. I'm giving up this control of thinking I can do it, and then when I mess up, I come to you. No, I'm gonna take that out the equation and just come to you first, and you guide me and tell me what I need to do. But in addition, though, I love the Black church. I love church. And I'm glad that we are now getting to a place where they're seeing that, you need God in therapy. And that's a beautiful thing. Like my pastor, he just graduated with his master's in family and marriage therapy. So it's so important, because I know at my lowest, when I was really depressed, being at church made me even more depressed sometimes. And I think that speaks to a lot of people, because, you hear just pray, you got to pray, you got to pray, you got to pray.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't change, it's like, you don't have faith. And so now that's
right.
a weight on you, because that was like, I don't have faith, nothing is changing for me. I don't have, and that's far from the truth. And there's so many people that are struggling in churches all over the world because of that. And so churches have to get better about combining the mental health with the spiritual care.
Wow, that you said a lot there. It's very interesting, because as a part of my journey, I mean, I've been raised in the church. I've always believed in God, but I would say, after going through what I went through last year, I started, I made the decision that I've got to, walk with God a little bit closer than I have been. Basically, we go through our seasons, right, of our faith walk, and I just came to the conclusion, I've got to start putting God first, right? It's like I believe in God, but a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm reacting or whatever, but it's like, okay, why don't you start putting God first, and making time for that. So I started off just doing devotionals, like I would listen to devotionals every morning. And then it became, there's these inspirational YouTube channels that I would watch. And then I found some that I would use to sleep at night. So like I would just let it play while I'm sleeping at night. And I found that it has helped. It has definitely helped. There's a lot of things that came out of that I recognized. And one of them is responding to what Jane was just saying about faith, right? And how like, okay, if I believe and I have faith, then, things should happen. If they don't happen, does that mean I don't have faith? Right. So you kind of struggle with that. And one of the things that I learned is, God says a lot of times he's going to be with you in the struggle. Right. Sometimes he's not actually taking you out of, he's walking with you through it. So then what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? What is that? What does that mean for God to be walking with you? So for me, in my journey, that is what I am learning now. Like, I'm not giving you guys an answer to that because I'm still trying to learn that myself. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like to be in the middle of, because let's be honest, right? When you are in a struggle, you're dealing with pain or hurt or stress or discomfort, you want to be out of it. You want the relief from it. You want to, whatever. You don't want to go through it, right? So anytime I read scriptures like that and I go, what does that mean? Like, why would I want you to just walk beside me when you could just take me out of it? Like, I don't want to be in this pain and in this struggle and this strife that I'm dealing with. This hurts. It hurts, God. So I don't want to be in this, right? And learning to deal with that and go, okay, all right, well, there must be a lesson I got to learn from this. So what is that lesson? So now I start changing and go, okay, God, what is it you're trying to teach me?
Right.
Because I don't want to come back here. I want to learn this thing so I could deal with it and not have to be in this space again because it hurts. So that, I will say that is one of the things that has helped me to deal with the darkness and the depression is understanding that, okay, I'm supposed to be learning something from this, and in this there's gonna be a new me, a new character, a new whatever that needs to come out. That the whole thing, like the butterfly in the cocoon, the pressure and all this, gonna be a new me. So I'm like, okay, let's just deal with it and embrace it and go through it. So yeah, that's
So, look,
I tell you, Minister Dr. Dempsey is he's preaching today.
look, and Darius, I was gonna say, sometimes you might think it's a new you coming out. It's just old stuff being taken off of you, so you can see who you are.
okay. There we go.
Because sometimes we want to be new, and God is like, no, I made you just the way I needed you to be to handle these situations. Because I ain't gonna front. This school year it's been great, but it's been tough. And then as I thought, what else could happen? I got a new student. Seriously? School year's almost over. A new student. And I'm sitting there going, what else can I take on my plate? Like I'm already in school, struggling with that, and I'm like, well, what's next? But I have to remind myself, he has equipped all of us with to handle every storm. But we also have to trust him going through the process, even if it's hard, it's scary. We might take some bumps, bruises, cuts, slashes, you name it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's something he's trying to teach us through all of this. And then we have to be open for the answer or ready for it. Because I say that too. Like, why did I have to go through this? Why am I still dealing with this? Why am I going through that? And we always ask why, but sometimes I think we got to sit back and say, what do you want me to learn from this?
Yeah.
which is not always easy to do. It's not always easy to ask that question. What do you want for me to learn? I don't want to learn nothing else. My brain is full. Like,
Right.
I can't take another one. But obviously, if you're going through the storm, he feels you can, because there's something at the end that he needs you to either see or experience or witness. And maybe not necessarily for you, maybe for somebody else.
Right.
know.
And that's funny that you said it, because the one thing else I learned is that I don't know who I was talking to, but he would your story is not always your story. It's not for you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like you think of Job, right? When Job was going through that Job wasn't like wanting to go through that. It wasn't for him. It was for all the rest of us when we read it later, right? So so if you kind of think of it that way, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going through this because it's some ministry, some stories, somebody that what I'm going through is going to lead me to ministering to somebody else to help them through whatever it is that they're going through.
Let's share just different things again that we can do to help us to manage our self-care and also to practice self-love. Just a couple of things that you want to share that we can do, because I know everybody has something different.
I think boundaries is a big one, because I mean, when I think of boundaries, I think of saying no, especially as, you know, educators, counselors, parents. A lot of times there's guilt in saying no, but in order to keep your bandwidth from expiring, you have to say no. And self-care is not selfish. It's, you have to take care of yourself in order to be there to take care of other people. So practicing saying no more.
Okay, definitely. I've got to do that. I ain't gonna front. I'm that dude at school. We need help with it. I got it. I got you. I'm gonna help you with that. Then I'm like, why did I decide to do that? You know. So I'm working on setting those boundaries, and I was proud of myself. Last week I did tell somebody no. They didn't like it, but they tried to send me some more kids in my class because they couldn't handle the kids. Can you watch? Nope. I can't do it. Take them to the office. And I just had to do it. I wasn't being mean, but I just knew I could not do anything else in that moment or handle any more kids in my class besides the ones I'm already teaching. You know, I'm not your overflow.
Right.
As you're saying that, I'm a very visual person. I'm imagine, you know, the chipmunks as they keep putting nuts in their mouth and their cheeks just expand until it explodes and all the nuts come out. Yes. That's what happens if you keep saying yes.
Absolutely. So anybody else want to share anything? And Darius, what we're doing, we're sharing tips, tools, anything we can do to help manage all these things right before we wrap things up, to help manage self-care, self-love.
For me, I would say, so it's definitely, you know, the boundaries, the giving yourself grace. But also it's about knowing what you need, you know, what you need to, you know, be healthy, be successful. And so if somebody's asking you something, if you know that's going to trigger you to become depressed, or if that's gonna, you know, make you become unorganized in this area, or if it's gonna lead to something that's not healthy for you, being able to say no. So identify what you need on a daily basis, and put that first, and unapologetically put it first.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. Stephanie or Dawn or Clarence, any of you want to throw something in there? Or Stephanie, you just did. So Darius, Dawn, or Clarence?
I think when it comes to the self-care and all that, I'll go back to what Sister Jamie was talking about, how her pastor's finished with his master's. If you really pay attention to society, even the shift in churches is becoming different, because pastors are realizing that it's just not enough to know the Bible. You have to be able to relate to your people. You know, so you'll see more and more getting their degrees and stuff in counseling and things like that. And I think when it comes to individual, you have to learn to know yourself. You have to be willing to realize that, you know what, I do matter, and I do have to set some type of boundaries, whether it's with family, co-workers, friends, whatever. You have to get to a point to where you have to be willing to put yourself first.
Right.
And realize that no matter what other people think about me, if I don't love myself, if I don't like who I am, I can't expect nobody else to love me or like me either.
Absolutely.
I would say, probably start with self-audit, try to figure out what are the things that stress you, what are the things that trigger you or put you under depression or pressure. And the ones that you can cut off and eliminate altogether, whether it's individuals, places that you go, whatever, stop going. Get rid of those people in your life that cause you the stress. Some situations, you can't get rid of them, so you got to learn how to manage them, reduce the amount of impact it has on you. So like your job, and I think once you identify those things, then learn and find tools to help you deal with those situations, and find ways to be around positive energy, things that make you happy, make you feel good. Try to include those in your life more. Find ways to bring that into your life more. So,
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And I like what Clarence said too about loving yourself first. When you're on the airplane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first in case of an emergency, because if you can't take care of you, how are you going to take care of somebody else? There are things that I'm learning even as an educator. I might have to take a day to take care of me. I know a lot of people are like, well, teachers need to be in the classroom. But yes, if I'm also not well, whether it's emotionally, mentally, whatever, I may need to take a day to take care of me, to reset. And finding out what that reset is. Even in the classroom, I've had to do a reset. Like one day the kids were just, I don't know what was wrong. Might have been a full moon, or moon was crashing into something, and an asteroid went by, spaceship landed somewhere. I don't know what was going on. And I had just discovered, and this is recently, and y'all might laugh, but y'all can laugh, but it really doesn't matter. I had just discovered Hip Hop Harry. Man, I put that song on and the kids had a blast. I really put it on for me because I don't know how I discovered it, just by chance on YouTube. And I was like, what is this? Oh, whoa, okay. Put it on for the kids and they party like, I was like, wow, this is all we needed, little Hip Hop Harry. Okay. Kids were dancing. It brought some happiness to the classroom, and it brought me happiness seeing them forget about work for a second. 3 minutes. Okay, forget about work. And they were bouncing and doing the little dance moves. And I was like, y'all know about Hip Hop Harry? They was like, yeah, we used to watch that when we were younger. I was like, oh, you mean 4 years ago?
Right.
But I had no clue because I don't have young children, so I didn't know anything about this. And it brought me so much peace. And I'll be playing it again tomorrow. When you play the Hip Hop Harry, it's like a dance challenge.
Yeah.
Trust me, the beat is slamming. You'll enjoy it.
Okay, I have to look it up.
Yeah, look it up after we get off this. People are like, what? You be pumping up in your car.
Can I throw it to me?
Trust me, it's cool. Yeah, it's I don't know who made Hip Hop Harry, but they made a good thing in that moment. But I also want to say, ask for help. If you are struggling with anything, ask for help. And that help. Let's say if you can't, or in a moment you can't reach a therapist, maybe reach out to a friend just to say, hey, I need a moment. Whether it's through a voicemail, text, whatever. Sometimes we need that just to get it out. And there are times I'll tell a friend, I just need to vent. I don't really need an answer for it. I just need to get out all the craziness that happened in my day. Whether it started from the time I got on the highway to the time I left work, maybe I just need to get that out and I feel better. I think we, and I'm talking about men right now, we've got to learn to talk. we gotta learn to share. We do hold a lot inside. I get it because we do feel like we're being judged a lot. Oh, if you sharing this, maybe you weak, maybe you this and that. No, just share. Just get that stuff out because as we know, it builds and manifests and could cause health problems.
Yeah.
You had a stroke and you don't know why. Well, you let all this build up and it exploded like the chipmunk, So I am getting better at asking for help. I can't sit here and say ask for help and not say that I'm not doing it. I am,
Practice what you preach.
I reach out to people, There are some days I don't want to talk to people though. I'm not gonna lie. There are some days where I look at my phone, I'm like, I can't do it today. I can't talk to that person because my energy is gonna go here.
Yeah.
Or, if I need to talk to certain people, you kind of know who's going to be available, who's not, who's going to listen, who's not. So you got to, once again, set those boundaries. I heard Jamie say that a lot, and figure out who it is that you can trust. And I understand reaching out to God, praying to God, giving it to God, but sometimes he's going to tell you, talk to this person. We're here for relationships, and build those relationships, even if we're afraid to talk, sometimes we just have to talk. That is a part of taking care of yourself, and it's a part of loving yourself too. Just say, hey, I need some help. So we're going to go around before we close out. Everybody share some words of encouragement to people, and then we'll wrap things up. So I'm going to start with Darius, and then we'll work my way according to who's on my screen.
Words of encouragement. Well, I think, again, like has been mentioned already, is just learn to value yourself and appreciate yourself and who you are. Know that you have worth, and just be able to find ways to, encourage that in yourself. Just reinforce the fact that you are a person of value.
All right. Thank you very much, Darius. I appreciate that. Let's go to Stephanie.
This is for people that are probably struggling and you've tried some of this stuff and you just can't get out of that funk. Seek help. Like Jamie said, recognize what you need. And Mark also said, and ask for it. There's nothing wrong with asking for help and getting professional help. Some of these, self-care suggestions just may not work, and you may need a little bit more. You may need God and a therapist, as Jamie said. So don't judge yourself. Show yourself some compassion. If you had a headache for a year, you would go to the doctor about your headache. So if you're feeling depressed and you can't shake it and you can't, get out of it, get some help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing that. Appreciate it. Jamie.
Sure. So I'm just gonna say what actually Stephanie said earlier, and somebody told me last year that self-care, self-love is not selfish.
I don't understand how he just lets her like.
I'm gonna end it like that, dropping the mic.
Thank you for that mic drop. Don't drop it too hard. You gotta pay for that mic. Let's go to Dawn and Clarence.
Self-love. Do what matters to you. And I think about the 5 love languages. What is that love language to you? Use it on yourself, because you are your best friend. At the end of the day, you are your best friend. And coffee, therapy, and God is my 3 friends. I'll hang on to it every week.
All right. Anything you want to say, Clarence?
Man, I was thinking about, you said you play hip hop parody. I play Bishop Bullwinkle in my class.
Uh-oh.
I've never even heard of these.
Hold on,
Bishop
let
Bullwinkle.
me write down Bishop Bullwinkle. Okay.
What? He's got a song talking about hell no to no.
Oh no, I can't play that. I'm sorry. I can't
No,
play
you
that.
can't play that. I got older kids. I got older kids.
I got
you. So it just reminds me that it's okay to say no.
Right. Absolutely.
You have to, like she said, self-care is not selfish. And oftentimes we always want to go because we feel like if we don't do it, nobody's going to get it done. It's not going to get done or whatever. But
Right,
we have
right.
to remember at the end of the day, if something was going to happen to us, somebody else going to do the job. So it's okay to say no.
Right, absolutely. And let me add this. Thank you for sharing that, Clarence. And but yeah, I can't play the bishop in my class, but
Now you can't play that.
and I know the song, but I just didn't know his name. I'm like Bullwinkle. I'm thinking Bullwinkle and Rocky, but now I know who the bishop is. But I think about this too. Sometimes, touch is important. And I'm not talking about groping and all that crazy stuff. I'm just talking about simple touch. Because we have a lot of people who go through life, go through years or can go through months without ever being touched by someone, meaning a hug, being close to somebody, and I think to me, that's a basic human need. I know some of us feel like, don't be touching me, don't be sitting next to me. But then we get with people that are close to us, we like to hug them. We like to be close to them. But some people I think are a deficit in that area. And that's what they need for that moment that could possibly help them. And just remember that when you're going through any of these things, you're not alone. There are people out there to support you. There are people out there to help you. Even when you think you are alone, you're not. There's someone out there who's waiting to say, I got you. I got your back, or I got your front side. I'll walk with you along this journey, or whether it's on self-love, self-care, whatever you need. There are people out there. We just have to be willing to reach out to them. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for us. I would like to thank the panel for being here. As you know, the panel rotates from time to time. Some people could not be here, but for those of you who are here, Clarence, Dawn, Jamie, Stephanie, Darius, I greatly appreciate it. And for the people who are listening to the podcast, I appreciate that, because I always say there's going to be something for somebody out there. It's going to touch somebody's life. Whether it's one or two people, that means there's somebody that's life may be changed by something somebody said. Once again, though, you have been listening to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. As I always end this show, make sure you show love to someone, your colleagues, coworkers, your spouse, your significant other. If you don't have one, show it to maybe your neighbor down the street that you quite don't care for. Just give a nice little wave, hey, and keep it moving. Strangers that we run into all the time, maybe give somebody a nice smile or simple hello, because we don't know how this is going to change somebody. And I know this doesn't work for everybody as we come up with this, as we spoke earlier, but look in the mirror, or don't look in the mirror, or just simply tell yourself, I love you, because we don't do enough of that. Y'all take care. Peace, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all take care. Bye.
Right.